this is actually a BoF, and you've all done a reasonable job of coming to the front. Good. Seems vaguely inappropriate in this massive space. So, oh, does anyone know how to make the screen move to the next slide? Tried space, right, down, page down, slide, I think. One arrow. It's got a pause button. Oh, I don't know. Sorry. I've never used this before. Right. Mostly we're going to argue about triplets, but this is the cross-distro BoF, so if there are any distro issues about things which we care about, which have recently become fixed, or are still issues we don't think are being dealt with, this is an opportunity to bring them up. So we'll get to that later. Let's argue about triplets first. So ILP32 is kind of a thing. We had a couple of meetings about it over the last 2 days, so anybody who cares knows most of that. But basically, it's ready. We're just waiting for the kernel people to agree that it is in fact ready. And glibc people are waiting on the kernel people because that defines the ABI. However, I noticed whilst building this that because everyone has done all the work of building for LP64 with an ILP32 multilib, it doesn't actually work if you just build for ILP32 or indeed ILP32 with an LP64 multilib.
Will it get the same syscall numbers?
I don't know. Ask the ILP32 people who do kernel ABIs. Will it have the same syscall numbers? I don't know. Okay, so the point here, so having done this, I kind of noticed that we set this triplet AR64 underscore LP32 or BE underscore LP32, but the point is that the kernel never returns that. That's kind of the machine kernel part of your triplet, and the kernel is both. It's always both. It'll never be one or the other, so it's a bit weird to look it up there. This is just an ABI. The hardware doesn't care. The kernel doesn't care. It's only your operating system, which ABI you want to use today, which basically depends on the libc that you're using and all the libraries you've installed. So it really ought to be in the OS part rather than in the kernel part. So the question is it a bit too late to fix this? Does anybody disagree violently that we should fix this? As far as so the feedback I've got is that either people don't care or they agree I'm right and it is part of the OS, not part of the machine. Okay. I haven't, no. Sorry, I've failed to take this in. Who said the LVM? Oh, sorry, LLVM, not, right, yes. Yes, so is there an LLVM person here who can say anything useful about what? Unhelpfully, okay. So yeah, so I will talk to the LLVM people and see.
I think the issue is from having touched LLVM code for way back is that they use enums in order to handle those triplet components. So they don't even use the string when you look at that, but they try to represent that internally so they would have to adapt their data structures between these changes.
Okay. So, but the impression I got from Renato was that he agreed that this was the right way around, but we just needed to check that it didn't make it really painful for them. So, okay, I guess we need to check that.
I think there's some historical baggage about how we've been managing these sub-extensions.
Yes.
What's my proposal here, which is that we carry on the policy that we've adopted on the architecture stream, is that we have clear separators between all these extensions. We have a canonical order, which, for the sake of argument, is alphabetical.
Okay. It is terrible, yes. How about you two just come up here and stand near these microphones? Anybody who has to say anything. Do we have mics? Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, a couple of mics should do. Someone want to be mic runner? Or just all sit at the front, all three of you actually want to say anything.
Right. Oh, God. So my concern on this was that the random concatenation of letters on the end of the GNU is unmaintainable, it's unparsable. So when we came to the architecture part, when we started adding extensions there, I sort of said early on that I thought that there should be a strict policy that we separate each extension with an underscore so it doesn't affect the top level parsing, and then that we have a canonical ordering of any extensions so that there is one defined order for any combination of extensions that might exist. And for the sake of argument, that should just be alphabetical. And that keeps things straightforward, and you know where you're going, and you know what the order should be,
yeah,
and everyone can sign up to something.
Your parsing will
fairly
not
simple.
stop working randomly in the future. So
I was just saying, I personally on the ABI issue, I don't care whether this is on the beginning or the end, but I do think we should carry over that sort of policy or something equivalent to that so that everybody can buy in and understand how to decompose this thing into sensible extensions, if that's relevant.
and so
If
far as
it's
I
not
know,
relevant, you can just ignore it with a star.
so far as I know, that doesn't break anything. I mean, it's true that most of the historical things on this line have just stuck some letters on the end, but I don't think it actually matters. Again, unless the LLVM people have a problem with this. So just to illustrate the point about why this works is convenient. Oh wow, finally my font changes. It didn't do that when I was looking at it. Oh well, sorry about that. Configure is a bit of a pain for any of you who've done this before because upstream ships the configure files with the software, so they're always out of date. So whenever you add a new architecture, it's just missing and nothing works. Now, in fact, a lot of build systems have fixed this by just overwriting them. We're doing that in Debian, but that's a slow process. But the problem is if you build upstream stuff, it's still always broken. So it is convenient if we don't have to fix configure. And as it happens, if you stick things on the end, configure is perfectly happy and just shows you the string. So then you just have to deal with it. Whereas if you stick things at the beginning, it wants to identify it. So that's, you know, it's not a huge advantage, but it is significant if you actually ever wanted to make a whole Oz of this in anything other than OBS. So in practice, what you'll end up with is pretty much only toolchains and dpkg and RPM and other build systems have to actually parse triplets. Everything else just gets the toolchain defined LP64 and ILP32, which are conveniently exactly the same on x86 and ARM. So this is beautiful, and your software will all look the same. So an awful lot of software at the moment checks x86, 64 and ILP32, but in practice it should probably often just say, am I ILP32, do the right thing. So only a few things, having had a look, actually have already noticed the triplet for this and used it. Is he? Sorry?
Yeah, you said that only toolchain and dpkg RPM have to care. What about open embedded?
Yeah, probably cares. Yeah, so build systems is actually the other thing I didn't mention.
So we have a meta ILP32 layer where we patch things around, and that's easily fixed.
Yes, so you have a pile of patches already, but
Yes.
most of those check __ ILP32 for whatever it is, right? Because that's the right thing to do. Very few things actually have to care what the triplet was that gave them that. Pretty much tool chains. So the only thing that shows through is multi-arch paths, which is annoying. So Python has a, if on ILP32, then this multi-arch path. And we really ought to have an upstream way of setting multi-arch paths, but we don't, and that's a separate subject. So there's this thing is like, should we put an underscore in? Richard thinks strongly that we should, and I think it's a good idea unless anyone can think of a reason why it's going to break the world. So I don't. Raise your hand now. Last chance. So we'll check with the LLVM people, but unless, and I don't know what they do if they say, no, we hate it, argue a bit more. And that's basically it. Okay, so I think the...
Just another question. What is the convention for the USRlib, the additional USRlib dedicated to ILP?
So the user lib convention that has been used is libILP32, same as it was libx32 for x86 or lib n32.
So-
or basically, it's lib whatever crazy string people have used in their particular architecture. So there's a million lib/something architectures, which is why it's disgusting and you should use multi-arch. But if you're using multi-lib, that's how it comes out. And everybody seems to be happy with that. So
if I consider a Linux system tree with the three types of distribution,
you mean x86 with LP64, LP32, and i386?
imagine I have the three types of distribution. What will be the name?
Three types of ABI.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So the name will be user lib for the 64-bit LP64.
Well, it depends slightly on your distro. So it'll be lib64, lib, and libx32 on Red Hat, and it will be lib. Well, no, on Debian it just uses multi-arch directories, so we don't do that, except for inside the compiler.
And you mentioned Red Hat. From what I know, RHEL will not go for at all for ELP32.
Yes, they've said they're not supporting this.
And
they don't care
Fedora
what we do.
probably also not. So there is no problem, and there is no multi-lib for ARMv8 in Fedora, and there will not be.
Right.
What about Susan?
The answer is very simple. We do have a tree already that is building RP32. It is all multi-lib. It uses /lib/lp32. We have /lib and lib64. We already, the current everything SUSE that you can get today, even the server products do also have AH32 support. So we always are by lib right now. We don't ship AH32 binaries on /, but you can run them if you want to run them. In general, the whole infrastructure, so RPM and Zipper and all the packaging around it are aware of what RP32 and AH32 are.
So, yes. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that the x86 people should be using lib/lp32 instead of libx32, but I imagine that's far too late to fix, so they'll just be different. I'm not sure I care much. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else anyone wants to say about that before we go on to... I'm not sure that there is much else to discuss. I have a couple of things. Okay, so things I've been aware of that have been fixed in distro world. Somebody turned up that cared about libphobos, amazingly. Turns out the people who make petrol pump stuff, you know, machinery, embedded stuff, use ARM and D. So they complained that there was no libphobos for ARM64, and we went, well, it needs porting. Apparently it's difficult. And they had a look and went, actually, no, it's trivial. Some types need setting. It was easy. And you go, okay, great. So that, I don't think that's upstreamed, but it appears to be basically working. Inside ARM, we've been doing some actual attempt at dog fooding. ARM desktops, trying to make them a thing, so people actually use ARM desktops.
Can you somehow feed Firefox into an internal CI loop? So we had Firefox working about 7 times by now, and every version update it breaks, every single one. So we always have an outdated.
We have had trouble
Firefox
getting the
version.
Firefox people to take patches in finite time. That's annoying, but
integrate with their CI loop.
Yeah.
So that basically they test in their development branch whether ARM breaks, because it's always trivial compile fixes, but nobody realizes that until 2 months after it got released.
So there is a general problem with that. It has been a long time before people could get cheap ARM64 hardware to run their CI loops on. And so quite a lot of upstream projects are going, well, we would do that if we could buy a board for 200 quid that was any good and would build our massive C++ project. And that has just about become true now after a long
Ask the
pause.
employer to do that for them, maybe.
Oh, or they could use OBS. Yeah.
Or they can also obviously use OBS, yeah. I mean, it's not like we have spare build power the whole time, but...
So, so, I mean, I haven't had anything to do personally with, but yes, people should be running CI loops. And I think everyone understands that, but for various reasons, people haven't got round to it. And yeah, they may not be aware that they could use OBS or whatever. So you're right.
Okay.
Stuff like that always breaks. So there have been patches needed to make all those things actually work. Obviously, as far as I know, very few people are using desktop stuff yet. Martian has a bit. We've done a little bit in ARM, but mostly that's not really a thing yet. So there's probably more breakage to be found.
I agree that the really, really fun fact on that is that our /CI loop actually runs Firefox and GNOME Shell into the whole thing. So we actively do test these things.
Okay, so
enterprise
you've noticed it breaking.
So we do notice them breaking the whole time. But it's just an artifact from basically from legacy that our CI comes from the desktop parts.
Okay, so my question here really is, are there other things we know of that are broken and need some engineering effort that have been discovered? Anyone got any? Somebody mentioned video inside browsers last year. I don't know if that's fixed. It wouldn't surprise me if codecs are working but very slow in some instances. They are working. Okay.
You can watch YouTube on Mustang.
Sorry, the?
Mustang, which is quite slow, was fine enough to watch YouTube videos when I was playing with ARM desktop over a year ago.
Okay, I don't know what Mustang is. Mustang. Ah, right.
Remember my English.
Yeah, sorry.
Right?
And FFmpeg has had ARMv8 support ever since the iPhone came out. That's what they
True,
developed.
yes.
So that's going in the
Yes,
right
and obviously the phone people have helped a lot in making that stuff work. Good question. The question was, is WebKit tested? Did anyone use WebKit browsers?
Yeah, it works mostly through the GNOME, but different browser from my
Right, okay. Cool. So one thing I think is still a problem is for...
I'm sorry, in a past FOSDEM session, I recall that you were saying that Mono still needed some porting. Is that done by now?
For what? Sorry, what lib?
Mono, this
Mono.
.NET?
Yes, Mono got fixed. Somebody bought... Microsoft bought it, which meant it got released, I think. That's what happened after a long time.
Yeah, as soon as Microsoft bought Xamarin, they open sourced their full ARM64 backend and uploaded it into open source projects.
So yes, yay for Microsoft. They've fixed something for us. Excellent. By applying some cache to the problem. So I think we still have an issue with JITs because they all assume 48-bit addressing because that's what you get in x86, and we have 47-bit addressing the other way around.
It's a terrible thing. So 52 is not an issue because in user space you only usually get 48. I'm not aware of any enablement for 52, but in user space it's only kernel. For the 47 thing is basically an issue mostly with JavaScript, with the Mozilla JavaScript engine. Anything else is essentially fixed these days as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so I know Lua has been sorted.
Unfortunately, we have 50 copies of the Mozilla JavaScript engine from different points in time, some dating back to 15 years. It's an insane mess, and the actual fix for that would be to just move the projects that use those engines to go to newer versions of the Mozilla JavaScript engine.
Yes.
But I don't think everybody actually went through that. If you have a lot of spare time on your hands or resources, the one thing that's basically the only one thing that I'm aware of that's still missing that doesn't have at least a downstream fix, so we do have downstream fixes for ancient Mozilla JavaScript versions in our tree, so that Mozilla whatever stuff with PolicyKit, for example, works. Because PolicyKit only uses a 10-year-old version, not a 15-year-old version. The 15-year-old version is only used in CouchDB as far as I know.
What, sorry?
CouchDB. CouchDB. It's a
CouchDB,
NoSQL
right, yeah,
database
okay.
thing.
Yeah, I know
if you have a fix, if you have a port, sorry Peter, if you have a port that basically makes that work reliably and well upstreamy with another Mozilla JavaScript engine, that would basically just get rid of the whole issue.
Yeah, so we've been working with Jeremy Littenton from ARM, and he's done a bunch of porting work around that. It's now fixed in the upstream latest, and I think version 52 came out yesterday, which is a long-term release. And there's been patches backported for all the various different versions of...
in the upstream Mozilla JIT
Correct.
thing. Right, yeah.
And so there is patches out there in the various distros that have been backported all the way to the 15-year-old. There is a whole bunch of different projects that depend on varying versions, Erlang, etc. Jeremy's also been doing some work to help port some of those to newer versions, and it's slow and it's getting there.
Okay.
But I think that's looking a little bit better. The other, I suppose, broken, unported thing that I have on my list is PyPy. There's been
True. That's
no
the 32-bit
effort
only port, isn't it?
there.
Which suits most people apart from Cavium.
Yeah, there's still some issues within D around 128-bit maths, which we've engaged a little bit with the upstream, but there seems to be some backwards and forwards how best to deal with that.
So is PyPy on anybody's list that we know that actually wants to dedicate some effort to it? Not in this room, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, so I should write that down. Thank you. I'd forgotten about that one.
And I mean, from like the package set that's in Fedora, all nearly 20,000 source packages, you're then getting sort of into the sort of prologues and various lists,
obscure
and
shit.
various corner case, ugly sort of stuff. But I think even those are starting to get ports as well.
Okay.
So I think like the FPC Pascal, I think
That got-
upstream.
That
but
got fixed last year, yeah.
yeah, but it hasn't had a stable release yet.
Oh, right, okay.
So from that point of view, there's very few on my list, and most, you know, with things like Mono, I think that landed in 4.6. We're pretty much in parity, most cases, with x86 there.
Okay, cool. So I guess we're left with optimization tasks mostly rather than porting now, and I don't have a good handle on how much of that is left.
So we did find a breakage in the gold linker in Debian as well.
Right, yes.
Which we actually, it isn't a problem in Stretch, isn't a problem in Jessie, but is a problem in Jessie backports.
That was Haskell using gold, wasn't it?
Well, it's
That's
not
what
just
we noticed.
Haskell, it's a number of packages using gold, and it was breaking alignment internally. It's already been well fixed upstream, but
Right.
it's an issue that which we will be fixing with rebuild shortly.
Okay. Right. Well, I think that's all, unless anyone can think of anything else they care about. Yes, they did have an AOB slide for just any distro-related stuff anyone wishes to mention.
I'm trying this on my overdrive, and it would be nice to kind of keep in
Yeah.
touch with this row. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't think of a better place. I mean, yeah, so at the moment it's kind of they're working on getting a machine that's actually in a decent state so we could actually hand it out to staff and say, you're using an ARM machine. So it's not really started in anger. Obviously some people use ARM hardware anyway, Chromebooks basically. But people have noticed that this is a deal, so that it's good, because that's taken a while to get through to the powers that be.
So
yeah.
one thing we realized is after we released OpenSUSE for the Raspberry Pi for the 3 and 64-bit mode, people started actually using 64-bit repositories much more. So if you actually target hardware that people have, it actually is much better than if you target $500 machines that people don't buy.
Indeed.
Right, we do see more traction now on the OpenSUSE ARM, and it's just by random community people doing things. Right?
Yeah, as you say,
So
a lot of
it's-
stuff
it's
gets
getting
fixed.
traction.
If people have to use stuff and it's broken, it tends to get fixed.
We usually did not ever, I think, have any process where you would say, I want to do desktop cross-distro, and I just have a mailing list that people combine for ARM or for mainframe or for whatever, right? It never has been architecture specific, but always distribution specific. Most people actually kind of got along with that way, and I think it's perfectly okay if that feeds back to upstream and just goes in and is done.
Yeah, I mean, mostly people talk on whichever, you know, their distro list or the upstream software list or whatever it is they particularly care about, which is very diffuse, so it makes it difficult for someone like me to know what the hell's going on. You know, there aren't that many things which are arguably actually a cross-distro issue, but it's a good place to just kind of ask and what's going on.
So basically the point is that I've already found and fixed a couple of kernel bugs, but if I get some kind of GNOME shell splat or something in the browser, I can't really debug.
Yeah,
that with-
there isn't a good central place to say, has someone somewhere fixed this in somewhere?
So if that appears on cross-distro, I'm not going to get flamed.
I don't think so. I think we could use it more and it wouldn't piss people off, I don't think, you know, so.
So I'm back with Open Embedded. Suppose I am I want to install a Linux tree with both LP64 userland and ILP32 userland.
Mm-hmm.
Now I need two toolchain in Open Embedded to compile one toolchain.
So, yeah, so you can build an ARch64 toolchain that does both with either multi-lib or multi-arch paths.
Okay, so it's the same compiler for LP64 and ILP32?
It depends how you build it, but you can build it like that's how it's built at the moment. The OE people would like you to have two tool chains. The Debian people would like you to have two tool chains. Everybody who's actually working on this is building one tool chain.
So my question is Open Embedded ready for doing that?
It depends on the distro you pick.
The distro I pick.
Open Embedded builds distro needs to support it. And at the moment, RPM is the only thing in Open Embedded that is able to resolve multiple conflicts. So if your distro does not use RPM,
Okay.
among other things, but it's up to your distro. Open Embedded itself doesn't care.
But does it care of having two toolchain?
That's supported.
Okay. This
Yes.
was
I think that's better myself. I think it makes life a lot simpler if we do less multi-libbing and more multi-arching. But yes, time to stop. So thank you, everyone. That was useful, I think. Looks like we have sufficient consensus to proceed for now. I'll go and talk to the toolchain people some more. Cheers.